Hey, you brought up Ole Anderson's name a while ago. Ole was a rough, gruff, tough son of a bitch. And when I passed through WCW, I got along just great with him. I really enjoyed Ole. And, of course, watching him in a tag match, I didn't get a chance to catch a whole lot of Gene and Ole, but I caught a whole lot of Ole and Arn, one of my favorite tag teams of all time. What was your relationship like with Ole Anderson?
Well, Ole, not only was he a gruff son of a bitch and wrestling's original grumpy old man, but he was incredibly intelligent,
right?
Incredibly well-spoken. He was dedicated to the wrestling business, and he was very straight-laced with it. And as a matter of fact, my favorite Ole Anderson, one of the nicest things that anybody ever said to me, Ole said, Cornette, one time, he said, I used to think you were a dumb fuck, but so many other dumb fucks have come along that are worse than you, that you've moved up the ladder without doing anything. Ole and I got off on a rocky start because Dundee had done a deal in that Georgia territory in the summer of '83 where my rich mother had sent my poodle Fifi down because I'd never had, Fifi had never had a birthday without me being along, with her. And we had a birthday party for Fifi. And this videotape, I've got a shameless plug at jimcornette.com. If you go and you look up my rookie year video, this video is available. Like 7 people saw this fucking show. But I preserved it. We had a birthday party with all my heels wearing the hats and blowing the noisemakers. We had a cake. And, of course, the fantastic ones, Bobby Fulton and Terry Taylor, came out and put my face in the cake. And Ole came from the real straight-laced, the Carolinas, where there wasn't a lot of comedy and there wasn't a lot of bullshit in wrestling, and they didn't do a lot of outrageous things. And, he remembered the Nick Goulas days from Tennessee, where Nick was a notoriously bad payoff man, and they did a lot of hoo-ha. He didn't understand the Tennessee wrestling philosophy. And we're in Chattanooga, after all, so it's Tennessee. So first time I met Ole, and I'm a young kid, but I was still a smartass. And I said, Ole, it's nice to meet you. And I shook his hand, and he said, yeah, you had the birthday party for the dog on my television. I said, yeah, I saved you a piece of cake. He said, really? I said, yeah, it's in my ear. And so, Ole and I had a star-crossed relationship until finally he got a begrudging respect, I think, for me because he enjoyed zingers. He liked verbally jousting with people. And if you could stand up and trade with him verbally, he got a little bit of respect for you. So one time after the Great American Bash of '86, we're working for Crockett, and we're in the locker room in Huntington, West Virginia. And Ole, had gotten his check, and we'd all gotten our checks for the bash. And I think his check for the 14 bashes was like $17,500, and mine was like $22,000 because we were figured in a little bit, stronger with the midnight and the rock and roll and the road wars, etc. And he said, goddamn, it's a sorry state of affairs. When I've spent all my life trying to uphold the honor of wrestling and working all my life and blah, blah, blah. And we'd worked against Baby Doll. That was the thing, 6-man's me against Baby Doll. And it says a sorry state of affairs when a bitch and a fat manager make more money than I do. And I said, well, to be honest with you, Ole, I said, I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank you right here and right now for paving the way in the wrestling business so that I could come in and make more money than you did. Well, goddamn it.
The thing about Ole was he was one of the best cussers I've ever talked to. He just uses the same standard words that we all use, but for some reason, coming out of his mouth, it's pure platinum.
Well, it was like the father on the Christmas Story. He worked in profanity the way other people work in oils. And that's the thing is Ole, but despite the profanity, he was, like I said, an incredibly intelligent guy. And
real smart.
He could make his point, but he punctuated the points in profanity to be alliterative so that the guys would listen to it at the same time. He was making a very intelligent point, but he was making sure that they listened to it. And, that was, and plus one of the great promo men of all time, still to this day, the promo that he did on Atlanta TV, on TBS, after he turned on Dusty Rhodes in the cage in the Omni, which I was at that match, and there were literally fans trying to climb the cage to get into it, to get it at the Andersons. That was one of the great promos that I used to give the guys in Ohio Valley Wrestling tapes of, to say, if you want to draw money verbally in a wrestling business, this is how.
Right.
And so Ole and Gene, they were a no flash tag team, but they drew money in Georgia and the Carolinas for years. And people always say, well, why didn't the Anderson brothers go anywhere else if they were so good? And it was much the same as Lawler in Memphis, where they would have been stupid to go anywhere else. They were making so much money, and they were on top and drawing such big houses in the Carolinas and Virginia and Georgia that they didn't need to go anywhere else for years at a time.
Hey, whatever happened to Gene Anderson?
Gene passed away, gosh, it's been probably the late 90s, but Gene, he was the original Anderson brother. And after he had to retire, I want to say he had a stroke, but he always had the twitch, the Gene Anderson twitch, which just added to his character. He had a muscular twitch in his neck. But he segued from in the ring to a manager for Crockett, and then later on worked in the office. He's the guy that ran local promos every Wednesday. He would travel to the towns, and still, even when he was out of the ring, even to the day he died, he had incredible grip strength. I mean, not close to Danny Hodge, not Danny Hodge-like, but he had incredible grip strength, and he knew the pressure points. And I've seen him take the Barbarian with his middle finger and his thumb and grip the Barbarian. He would come up to guys and just grip them on the elbow, and he knew where to get it.
Right.
He would have the Barbarian down on his knees saying, please, Gene, please, Gene. And Gene would say, tell me you're a faggot. Tell me you're a faggot. Please let me go.
Oh, Jesus. Hey, is there any truth to this? I was at WCW at the time, and Dusty had the book. And I don't know if you know this or not, that when Dusty was going to make, what was the big tugboat Taylor? Fred?
Typhoon. Fred Ott.
Yeah, Fred Ott. He was going to make him the Shockmaster. And then they did the deal on the, was it the pay-per-view or was it television?
Well, actually, it was even worse. It was live and free on TV where everybody could.
Yeah, live, free on TV. And anyway, Shockmaster, whatever happens, he trips and falls through the wall and blows the big, unveiling of his character. But was it Ole Anderson indeed the voice of the Shockmaster?
Well, he may have been. I know he was the voice of the Black Scorpion for all that time, because that was one of the more ill thought out angles where they had a Black Scorpion that they were going to unveil, and they actually didn't know who the Black Scorpion was going to be from one moment to the next. But the story that I got, I had left by then, but the story that I got was that the Shockmaster with that helmet on and that elaborate outfit was going to burst through the wall on that segment and just make a big entrance. And they made the wall breakaway, but what they didn't do, didn't tell Shockmaster or anybody else after the run-through, there was an actual solid board that was about a foot off the ground that they had reinforced the wall with, that he could have stepped over it had he known. But since he didn't know, he busted through the breakaway wall, but the board that was a foot off the ground tripped him like a tripwire, a jungle booby trap, and he goes face first, and his helmet rolls off, and he falls on his ass. And I think that was a Flair for the Gold, the Flair interview segment, and wasn't it Arn that you could hear? It may have been Arn, but somebody in the background was going, he goddamn fell on his ass.
That was Davey Boy. The microphone was picking up Davey Boy. He fell flat on his ass. He fell flat on his fucking ass. And then you can hear Sid, oh, God. And then Sid starts over-talking him, and then it's a total verbal clusterfuck because they're out of sync, but they're continuing to go forward. It's live television. I remember it going down. I was there. I remember when I got back. I mean, I've watched that clip on YouTube so many times. It's probably, in my opinion, it's the funniest thing that I've ever seen on a wrestling program.
Yeah, and boy, you talk about people try to force comedy in wrestling, but in this case, it was very unintentional, and that's the best comedy sometimes. But organic comedy is the best. But that was certainly not planned. But yeah, I remember, as a matter of fact, now that you mentioned it, was Davey Boy, because I was doing the accent and attributing it to Arn. But oh my God, he fell on his fucking ass.
It was Davey with that thick man chest, right?